Ever wondered what it was really like to be a student in the Middle Ages? Forget what you've seen in movies? The reality of attending a medieval university was a wild mix of intense learning, rowdy behavior, and surprising freedom. Let's dive into what life was truly like for these early scholars. First off, getting into a university like Oxford or Bologna wasn't about grades or standardized tests. If you were a man, usually from a well-off family, and knew enough Latin to follow the lectures, you were pretty much in. Students were young, sometimes starting as early as 14 or 15. Imagine leaving home at that age to join a bustling, often chaotic university town. Your day would start incredibly early, often before sunrise, with the ringing of church bells. You'd head to a cold, damp lecture hall, probably with just a stone floor to sit on. There were no desks or comfortable chairs. You'd sit on straw, huddled together for warmth, while a master read from a rare, handwritten book. These books were unbelievably expensive, so you'd spend hours just listening and taking meticulous notes on wax tablets. The entire lecture was in Latin, the universal language of scholarship. The curriculum was intense and focused on the 7 liberal arts. You'd start with the trivium, grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Once you mastered that, you moved on to the quadrivium: arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. After years of this, you could finally specialize in a higher faculty like theology, law, or medicine. This wasn't a 4-year degree. It could take over a decade to become a master. Now let's talk about the fun part. Life wasn't all study and no play. Medieval students were notorious for being rowdy. Without a formal campus, they lived in rented rooms scattered across the city. This created a classic town versus gown rivalry. Fights, brawls, and serious riots between students and locals were incredibly common. Students formed groups called nations based on their home region, which often led to even more internal clashes. Their free time was filled with drinking in taverns, gambling, and playing sports like an early form of football, which was often just a violent mob kicking a ball through the streets. They had their own legal system too. If a student committed a crime, they were often tried by university courts, not city ones, which usually meant getting a lighter sentence. This special status, known as clerical privilege, made them feel above the law and definitely didn't help their reputation with the townsfolk. Despite the harsh conditions and chaos, these universities were beacons of knowledge in a world just emerging from the Dark Ages. They were places where ideas could be debated, where ancient texts were rediscovered, and where the foundations of modern science and philosophy were laid. It was a tough, demanding, and often dangerous life. But for those who survived it, a university education was a ticket to a position of power and influence in the medieval world. So the next time you think your student loans are tough, just remember the medieval student, huddled in the cold, trying to learn Latin by candlelight, and maybe dodging a tavern brawl on the way home. It puts things in perspective, doesn't it? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the past, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. See you next time.